We're starting this drive at the very top of Trousdale Estates, on what many people informally think of as the neighborhood's upper edge. It makes sense as a starting point because it really does feel like the outer rim of the development, high, quiet, and slightly removed from the more familiar interior streets below. Evelyn has a more elevated, almost perimeter-like quality. It feels less like a pass-through street and more like a place you go to because you mean to be there. A newer example is 565 Evelyn Place, recently marketed as a custom-built modern architectural residence, while 570 Evelyn Place has been presented as a Trousdale mid-century associated with Rex Lottery. That mix is very Trousdale, original architectural lineage living alongside newer luxury reinterpretations, all held together by the same larger hillside logic of privacy on approach and openness toward the view. From Evelyn, we move toward Arkell Drive, and the mood shifts from high-edge quiet to one of Trousdale's stronger statements of architectural ambition. Arkell has become one of the streets that best demonstrates the neighborhood's evolution. It still belongs to the original mid-century framework, but it also carries the outsized confidence of newer Beverly Hills luxury. Public listings on Arkell in recent years have included substantial trophy properties, and the street has enough camera-ready scale that it fits naturally into the kind of luxury real estate storytelling that now defines Beverly Hills in pop culture. What makes Arkell useful in a drive like this is that it feels like a hinge between eras. In Trousdale's early decades, the neighborhood was already celebrated for architect-driven custom homes by names like Wallace Neff, A. Quincy Jones, Harold Levitt, and others. Streets like Arkell now show how that legacy has expanded into the era of larger compounds and more overtly cinematic modernism, without losing the original emphasis on siting, view orientation, and a disciplined relationship to the street. Now we turn onto Vick Place, and this is where the route gets intentionally more intimate. Vick is a small cul-de-sac, so the story here is quick. It feels tucked in, private, and very residential. One of those little pockets that remind you that Trousdale's prestige is built as much on calm and concealment as on spectacle. Public subdivision records show just a handful of properties here, and that limited scale is exactly what gives it its appeal. Back out of Vick and onto Haynes Avenue, the architecture gets more interesting again. Haynes is one of the quieter streets in Trousdale, but it punches above its weight. Haynes also carries a more contemporary chapter. 590 Haynes Avenue, a Steve Hermann-designed contemporary view house, with terrazzo fountains, walls of glass, 12-foot ceilings, and a polished indoor-outdoor entertainment layout. Taken together, those two Haynes examples say something important about the street. This is not one of Trousdale's loudest addresses, but it is one of the ones where design quality keeps showing up behind a quieter frontage. Haynes feels secure, peaceful, and architectural in a more insider way. From Haynes, we move to Usher Place, and while it is small, it has a very useful role in the neighborhood. Usher is one of those short connective streets that helps knit together major Trousdale geography. It links the Carla Ridge side to the Loma Vista side. That tells you exactly what Usher is, not a grand standalone destination, but a discrete connector participating in some of the neighborhood's best view and estate territory. Next is Chris Place, and like Vick, this should move quickly because it is one of the smaller cul-de-sacs. Chris Place feels hidden and very self-contained. Even so, it still carries that classic Trousdale formula: privacy from the street and openness beyond. And finally, we come to Leslie Lane, another compact cul-de-sac off the Loma Vista side, but one with a stronger published architectural identity. The Leslie Lane residence by Assemblage Plus was explicitly a remodel intended to capture and enhance the true spirit of the regional mid-century movement inside Trousdale Estates. That is a meaningful phrase because it suggests Leslie Lane is one of those places where the neighborhood's original design values are still being actively interpreted rather than simply replaced. Leslie Lane also has recent luxury market visibility through 530 Leslie Lane, with notable design polish and architectural digest-style presentation. So even though Leslie is small and the commentary here should stay brief, it leaves a strong final impression, a compact lane, but one that still carries architectural seriousness, privacy, and the curated feel that makes Trousdale's smallest streets so compelling. That's what makes this route work so well as a drive. It starts at the very top of Trousdale on Evelyn Place, passes through the more trophy-scaled character of Arkell, dips into intimate cul-de-sacs like Vick and Chris, pauses on architecturally rich Haynes, crosses the neighborhood via Usher, and ends on Leslie Lane with a reminder that even Trousdale's smallest branches can still hold real design pedigree. It is a quieter route overall, but in many ways a more revealing one, less about a single headline house, and more about how the neighborhood is actually structured, layered, private, architectural, and full of subtle transitions from one micro setting to the next. We're driving south now on Carla Ridge, one of the streets in Trousdale Estates that best captures the neighborhood's layered identity. Carla Ridge is not just about one view or one house type. It is one of those roads where the whole history of Trousdale seems to unfold in sequence. Mid-century originals, restored architectural houses, bold contemporary rebuilds, and the constant contrast between privacy at the street and openness toward the horizon. Our first detour is Burk Place, and the tone changes immediately. Burk Place feels smaller, tighter, and more intimate than the main run of Carla Ridge. It is one of those private Trousdale cul-de-sacs that gives the impression of being known mostly by the people who live there. A good example of the street's character is 630 Burk Place, a home marketed as being on a private cul-de-sac of only 5 homes. Originally designed in 1971 by Warner, Morris, and Wilson architects, and described as carrying Hollywood Regency glamour with unusual privacy and views. That tells you a lot about Burk Place overall. It is secluded, elegant, and feels slightly apart even within an already private neighborhood. Back on Carla Ridge, the street regains that broader, more panoramic Trousdale feeling. And then we come to Cole Place, which carries one of the best celebrity stories on this route. 610 Cole Place is the house most often associated with this cul-de-sac in public coverage. A 1967 mid-century residence later tied to Burt Reynolds, then reworked by Steve Hermann, and eventually purchased by Vera Wang in 2011. It is exactly the kind of address that makes Trousdale feel so tied to old Hollywood and contemporary design culture at the same time. The story is not only about celebrity ownership, it is also about how these houses are continually reinterpreted, with one era handing off to the next while the view-driven modern bones remain central. Cole Place also illustrates something essential about this part of Trousdale. The cul-de-sacs are not afterthoughts. They are where the neighborhood often becomes most private and most residential. Away from the longer through streets, these little pockets feel quieter, more insulated, and more like hidden addresses than showcase corridors. That quality is a huge part of their appeal on camera, because the drive starts to feel less like touring a neighborhood and more like slipping into a sequence of protected enclaves. Now we come to Endrino Place, another small branch that reinforces the tucked-away character of this section. Endrino Place does not have one single famous architectural headline attached to it in the same public way as Cole Place, but it is longer and more secluded, absolutely contributing to the street composition of Trousdale. Quiet, cul-de-sac, living with large homes, strong privacy, and a premium on discretion. Then there is Williams Lane, which feels almost like a hidden residential seam inside the neighborhood. Public records point to homes here from the late Trousdale period, including a 1967 house at 630 Williams Lane and other substantial residences nearby. Williams Lane helps tell the quieter architectural story of Trousdale. Not every important street here is dramatic in the same outward way. Some are valuable because they preserve the underlying residential rhythm of the neighborhood. Low-slung luxury, privacy, mature landscaping, and homes that are significant more for their siting and livability than for overt spectacle from the curb. And then the energy shifts again as we reach Arkell Drive. Arkell is where this southern Carla Ridge route opens into one of the strongest expressions of Trousdale's contemporary trophy era. The street still includes mid-century properties, for example, 510 Arkell Drive, a 1960 build, and explicitly note mid-century modern character. But Arkell also shows how large-scale new construction has entered the neighborhood. 620 Arkell Drive is a newer built mega estate of roughly 18,400 square feet. That juxtaposition, preserved mid-century houses beside monumental new compounds, is one of the clearest ways to understand modern Trousdale. Taken together, this whole southbound drive tells a remarkably complete story. Carla Ridge gives you the panoramic, architecturally ambitious side of Trousdale. Burk Place gives you the intimate cul-de-sac glamour. Cole Place gives you old Hollywood and fashion world celebrity history. Endrino Place and Williams Lane give you the quieter, more protected residential grain that makes the neighborhood livable as well as desirable. And Arkell Drive gives you the contemporary escalation, the mega estate chapter layered over the mid-century foundation. That is what makes this route so satisfying on video. It's not just scenic, it is narrative. Every turn reveals another version of Trousdale Estates. The original vision, the celebrity chapter, the architectural chapter, and the modern luxury chapter, all packed into one elegant hillside drive above Beverly Hills.
Welcome to Wallace Ridge. Here, the tone becomes more dramatic, more sculptural, and more overtly architectural. Where streets like Chalette feels quiet and sheltered, Wallace Ridge feels like a place where the houses are often composed as statements. The lots feel more elevated in spirit, the facades more deliberate, and the overall street presence more cinematic. This is still unmistakably Trousdale, but it is Trousdale with a sharper edge. One of the most important architectural points on Wallace Ridge is the Adler residence, designed by A. Quincy Jones in 1960 and later remodeled by Cory Buckner. That matters because it ties Wallace Ridge directly to the serious design lineage that elevated Trousdale from mere celebrity neighborhood to architectural landmark. A. Quincy Jones is one of the names that gives this enclave real historical weight, and Wallace Ridge is part of that story. What makes Wallace Ridge especially compelling today is the way it shows the evolution of Trousdale in real time. Along this street, the neighborhood's original low-slung modernism lives alongside much larger contemporary compounds built around central courtyards, water features, disappearing glass walls, layered materials, and huge city-to-ocean views. A recent Wallace Ridge residence, profiled by architect C.M. Peck, centered its entire composition around a courtyard and descending water feature, while newer listings on the street describe materials like Portuguese limestone, Italian travertine, white oak, and steel-framed glazing opening to panoramic vistas. Wallace Ridge makes the progression of Beverly Hills modern luxury easy to see from the street, and Wallace Ridge also carries a more direct pop culture footprint. A major home here was featured on Netflix's Buying Beverly Hills, the kind of placement that makes perfect sense for a street like this. Wallace Ridge is built for camera. It has that high design, high drama quality that reads instantly on screen. Sculptural facades, oversized glass, long approach sequences, and the sense that each property has been composed not just as a home, but as a full visual experience.